All right, y'all, let's fix it. Client has a 2021 Dodge Ram in this shop in Georgia. Didn't take care of him on this install, so we're going to clean it up. Seems like they just threw his 4-channel right up under the driver's seat because it was not mounted. And his Rockford 5-skate sub amp is under the passenger seat, mounted to the floor with 2-inch drywall screws, which we will have to address, or they're going to cause some rust at a later date. Now, even though this shop did everything at once, it looks like he went there 2 separate times because we have 2 totally different wiring kits. Me personally, I would rather have one power wire that can handle the current for both amps and then use a power distribution in the back, but I'm not opposed to using 2 different amplifier kits because we can dress up both of the wires the exact same, whether we use Tech Flex or split loom. We can get 2 identical fuse holders, or we can get 1 dual fuse holder and mount it to the vehicle. That way our wire and our fuse holder are secure, protected, and they're not just laying over the engine bay. At this point, I just want to go ahead and uninstall both of these amps and undo everything the old installer did. That way we can just start over from scratch. First thing we want to do is address these grounds. I want to remove the old ones because they just use self-tapping screws to go right through the floor. So we definitely want to seal those up, and we want to remove all the power wire because even though they tucked it right up under this console and it's technically out of the way, there's easier ways that you can run those wires and they can still be serviceable and clean. So that's the end of part 1. Let me know what y'all think. Stay tuned because we got a long way to go. All right, y'all, let's fix it part 2. Now, I'm all for going through a rubber boot or a grommet, but the other shop cut the whole entire interior layer of the grommet out, and it did not seal the hole from the interior or the exterior side. So if he runs over a big puddle, or if it rains and the hood's open, there's going to be water, some type of moisture, or there could even be engine fumes that can get inside the car. So we're definitely going to have to go back and seal all that stuff up. So I went ahead and took the radio out because I want to see what type of LOC or modulator they had in the back to actually get signal to the amplifiers, and at least they used the PAC AP4CH41. This thing is pretty much bulletproof. It has a plug and play harness, no need to splice anything, and you get up to 3 sets of 5-volt preamp outputs. Now, I noticed that there was a gap between this plastic board from the factory and this computer, so I decided to mount my A&L fuse holder on the opposite side. And since the SMD A&L fuse holder is about a 1/2 inch thick, and I knew I had another inch of clearance on the other side, I used a screw long enough to go through the A&L fuse holder, but short enough to bite through the plastic and not touch that computer, so we can actually have our fuse holder mounted, safe, secure, and we won't actually touch the computer or damage any factory equipment at all. And now we're dressing up the 0 gauge 100% OFC silver tin copper wire and silver tin copper lugs. This should be more than enough to carry the current from the front to the back distribution block. And if you ever want to upgrade the amps at a later date, all we have to do is mess with the back and we won't have to touch the front. Stay tuned for part 3. Y'all be blessed. All right, y'all, let's fix it part 3, continuing this Dodge Ram. What I want to do right now is check all of the old equipment just to make sure that it's still in proper working form. This is a tone generator and polarity tester, speaker popper, all that good stuff, but it's also a continuity tester so we can make sure that his RCAs are good. Every time we hear that beat, that lets us know there's no break in the path. Now, unfortunately, we can't use it for this install because they are too short and we are moving the amps from up under the seat to the back wall. Now, on the Dodge Rams, if you have a factory amp, all your speaker wires are right up under the driver's seat, and you can use a Maestro AR, which is an amp replacement module, and it gives you this harness and have all the speaker wires down here labeled what they're supposed to be. But I still want to meter these myself, and besides, I want to go ahead and find the location of these speakers. But usually your speakers will meter 4 ohms, but these were metering 2. Now, there was the 8 speaker system and they were wired up in pairs, which is not a bad thing, but I just had to let the customer know that you're going to lose some sort of control, but he wanted to save money and not buy 2 amps. Now, this amp board that I'm using is 1/8 inch ABS plastic. You can get it from Amazon. I usually like using the thicker stuff, but the 1/8 inch gives me more flexibility when it comes to heating up because I do want to do a 90-degree bend on it. So you just want to make sure you make a few passes and then bend it right on a sharp edge like my toolbox, and once it cools down, we have a nice 90-degree bend, which gives us room to mount the SMD blocks at the bottom and the amps up top. Stay tuned for part 4. Have a blessed day. And we are finally here. Let's fix it part 4 on this 2021 Ram. We are mounting the amps to the board. First thing I want to do is actually spin my speaker wire together, just because I think it gives a better look. Some people don't like when you spin wires together. They spin wires from the factory. I don't see anything wrong with it, but I like the way it looks, so I'm gonna do it. I always want to use the ferrules on these type of connections, but even though these set screws have a rounded edge at the bottom of the screw, when you tighten them down too tight, you can end up cutting the wire. The ferrules gives us a very good solid connection to where we're allowed to put the wire through the ferrule, and it actually tightens down the ferrule to where you're not actually cutting the wire. You're almost protecting it, but you're still getting that tight bond at the end. So it's just a really good tool to use on the end of the wires, and it makes everything look a lot neater as well. And now I just want to continue to kind of lay out my wires. I kind of like doing amp racks like this, well, amp boards like this, because you get to map out exactly where the wires are going to go, and then it ends up looking really clean at the end of the day. Now I know they actually make a ruler to kind of help guide this. I know that way I'm not just eyeballing it, but I think it'll be okay for now as long as I'm careful and everything lines up. So now we have all speaker wires and signal wires going one way. The power will actually go the other way. The RCAs are staggered on the end because they come in the harness. Make sure you guys stay tuned for part 5, and hopefully that's the last video. I wish I had longer to record, but it is what it is. Y'all be blessed. Welcome back to Let's Fix It, part number 5 on the 2021 Ram 1500 amp install / rehab 911, whatever you guys want to call it. So we're finally mounting the SMD UB4 ground distribution block. It's actually a ground or power distro block. You can use it for whatever, but I am using it for a ground distribution, and I'm using the SMD dual A&L fuse holder in the back as a power distribution. There's nothing wrong with running fuses in the front and in the back, especially when your amplifiers don't have any type of fusing on the amps. My goal is to run 0 gauge from the front to the back so we can make sure that we can handle the right amount of current all the way from the battery to the rear amplifiers, and then split them using the proper fusing that each amp needs in the rear, so we are double protected. Now there are some people out there that don't use fuses at all because they say you're just creating more resistance points or fail points, which technically is true, but at the end of the day you are controlling your system, and I can't control what they do with their system when the client leaves my shop. So I'm gonna make sure it's protected and use the fuses. That way, if anything happens to the car audio system when the truck is outside of my possession, hopefully we're only changing fuses and not equipment or burnt up wire. But at this point, we are finally done. I want to go ahead and cut all the zip ties off the back. Now that everything is finished, we are ready to get this amp board inside the truck and install it. Stay tuned for part 6 and have a blessed day. Alright y'all, so here we are, last video in this series of the Ram 2021 amp install, just giving it some TLC from what another shop did. The speaker wires are still up under the driver's seat. We want to go ahead and solder and heat shrink those to our 9-wire or multi-conductor wire speed wire. We went over that in a previous video, and we are actually taking the 0 gauge ground and power, hooking it up to the UB4 in the distribution block, ran through a factory hole in the carpet. Now we want to give this a proper ground using a factory 10mm bolt mounted to bare metal. It doesn't matter if you're grounding inside the vehicle or at the frame. Make sure you scrape it down to bare metal so you get the best connectivity. So to give you guys a playback for the ones who've been following the series, or maybe this is your first time watching the video, we went from this to this 0 gauge front to back using the SMD A&L fuse holder, and we did seal up that grommet from the front and rear side, and went from mounting the amps up under the seat to using 1 amp board behind the seat. And yes, the seat does fold down like it's supposed to. That 90-degree bend helps out a lot, and we have the 4-channel amp mounted right above the sub amp. Everything wired up nice, neat, easy to service, and that's pretty much it, man. Till next time, this your boy JP signing out, telling y'all to keep going, keep growing, and have a blessed day. Peace.